Before coronavirus hit, I was your typical A-grade student. I set 5 alarms every morning, and the fifth one's the one that woke me up because I sucked at waking up. All my clothes were laid out for me, so I just threw them on, grabbed my backpack that had all my homework zipped up from the night before, and threw it over my shoulder. I marched up the stairs, got some food in me even though I didn't care for eating in the mornings, and then headed out of the house with no time to spare because I get up so late. Hop in my car, head over to the school. I'm about 10 to 15 minutes early because I don't like to push the bell. And since high school is a project-based curriculum, I already know what my day has for me. So I grind out the 7 hours, and I'm just trying to attack all the homework I can so that I don't have a lot to do at home. After school, I hit the weight room for about 1 hour every day. And then immediately from the weight room, I drive over to Flex Gymnastics where I work and coach kids for 4 to 5 hours every night. The days that I don't work, I choose to spend my time playing soccer, which is my favorite sport, with some of my buddies at the field for 2 to 3 hours, depending, give or take. And then I head home. By that time, it's pushing like 8 o'clock, where I have an hour to do my homework. My homework might vary from day to day, depending on the workload, but it usually pans out to be about an hour overall. So by that time, I am worn, and it is pushing 10 o'clock. I'm tired. I had been on my feet all day. I went through 7 hours of school. I'd hit the weight room. My job consists of spotting kids and moving all the time. I don't have time to sit down. So I'm ready to go to bed when it's 10, 11 o'clock. And the only time I'll ever go to midnight is if there's a school event such as basketball or volleyball that requires me to be out later. Otherwise, 10:30 to 11 is usually the time that I'm out. And this was my day-to-day routine until the coronavirus hit, and that's when everything flipped upside down. COVID-19 has impacted me in many ways, but unfortunately none of those ways are positive in my eyes. The biggest thing that's changed with me since COVID hit was my sleep schedule. I don't sleep at a good time. I would say that I get to bed at 2 at the earliest. Usually I go to bed at like 4 in the morning, and then I either starve myself of sleep by waking up at 10, or I sleep until 2, 3 p.m. the next day. With this schedule, I get up and I only have a certain amount of time left of daylight to do the homework that I want to do. So I'm stuck inside, and being a high school student, I obviously am not always on task. So when I do wake up, it is already 2 to 3 p.m. I only have like 4 or 5 hours of daylight, but the first thing I feel the need to do is homework. So I start doing that homework, and then by nighttime, I finish for the day to that point. This has gotten worse over time. When I first started, I had schedules set every single day. I said I was going to wake up at this time, I was going to do this subject, and I was getting ahead of all my work. I was doing things, and I was finishing them before everybody else was, or way before teachers ever thought the deadline would consist of. I was done with things a week before they were due. And I was doing this strong for about 2 to 3 weeks, and then everything started to go downhill. My sleep started to differ as all my friends were on bad schedules. They were all sleeping at different times, so then I stayed up because some of them stayed up. We played video games really late. You know the drill with that. I felt lazy. I didn't exercise, which means I didn't sleep well. Exercise that I did daily in the past is what helped me sleep at night. So now I felt sluggish, lazy. I lost all my motivation to do the homework once the 3 weeks hit. I was doing these things that everybody else wasn't, and then everyone else was putting them off to the side, and they were enjoying their time for the most part. And I was here trying to get ahead of the game, trying to still be the student I was while I'm at home. But it just seemed like endless busy work to me. None of the stuff that we were doing in a lot of the classes seemed to come across as things that I'm going to need, and it felt like some of the teachers were just throwing it at me because we have to be in school for so and so amount of time. And then I did some research with some of the links that we were given about states like Georgia, New York, and Washington, and how they actually gave students benefits such as grades and incentives for learning curriculums rather than just logging in the hours, because a lot of things can be lied online. A lot of students don't have to do what they actually say they're going to do. And I know that I went out of my way for everything that I did to do it the best that I could. And that was especially true at the beginning, and then everything started to go downhill as I saw everyone getting the same grades as me and not doing a quarter of the work that I did. So I thought that was interesting that some of the other state schools like Georgia, New York, and them were actually giving incentives to the students who were doing their best to figure things out. One of the last things is kind of makes me sad. I'm a really social person, and when COVID hit, I wasn't able to see all my friends. I was at one house. I didn't get to see all of my family like I used to before. And when I'm not around people at the beginning, it felt normal to not see people. After 3 weeks I was adapting to it. I didn't even care to leave the house, which is weird because as soon as I got outside of the house to visit one friend to help him move something, and we talked, and it's like everything sparked again, and I just couldn't be in the house anymore. And I had to repeat the cycle because we were still in lockdown. So I couldn't change anything about it, but there's a depression factor to being locked in your house like this and away from friends and not being able to work out or go to the fields. Everything's locked down at schools, so I've been kicked off the soccer fields for playing soccer with a couple of friends before, more than one time already. There's no weight rooms for me to go to. I can't afford to pay for Snap Fitness or anything like that. So yeah, those are all the reasons why I've been negatively impacted by COVID-19. COVID-19 has impacted me negatively, as I said prior videos. There's a couple things that it did to my personality or how my behaviors were that were very different from the start of all of this. The feeling of accomplishment kind of diminished as Corona unfolded. The most accomplishment I felt in one day was making my bed because of my sleep schedule. Everything revolved around my sleep schedule. I would go to bed super late, and then I'd wake up midday when the sun is already out and its brightest point. But there's a part of me that never went away when COVID hit, and that's my priorities. My priorities went homework before everything else. So when I woke up, the sun was out, the sun was blaring, it was nice out. The birds were chirping, my dogs were outside, my brothers were outside. And I felt the need to do that homework right then and there when I woke up, and I don't stop until it's done. So I did all my homework at like 2 to 3, and then by 7 o'clock, sun's down, and I'm done with homework. At that point, I don't feel like I accomplished anything. I feel like I just wasted my whole day doing homework, but I'm going to repeat. I'm going to rinse and repeat because that's what I do. Homework comes first. So I continued this cycle where I did all of my homework during the day, and then when nighttime came, that's when my day started. So when nighttime came, I would hang out with my friends online, obviously. I could talk to them, but it wasn't the same. I'd never got to see them, and I like to talk to people in person. So I would talk to them until 4 in the morning on my games and stuff like that, and then I would wake up super late again. There's this thing that isn't the same about waking up and getting the same amount of sleep. It depends on when you wake up. When you wake up in the morning, compared to when you wake up at 3 p.m., there's a huge difference. It doesn't matter if there's 12 hours of sleep. And if you go to bed at, let's say, 7 and then wake up at 9, or if you go to bed at like 4 in the morning and then wake up at 4 p.m. the next day, you feel sluggish when you wake up super late. When you wake up in the morning, it's like it's a fresh start and the whole day pans out, and you wake up as the day goes and you build yourself up, and that's how it should be. That's just not how it was for me. I'd wake up super late, and then nighttime came, and I'd say 4 to 5 hours of my day was, even more than that, was nighttime, dark, on my games, playing on the PS4, on my computer, on my phone, and it didn't feel like part of the day. Like the next day, it felt like 2 minutes. 4 hours of that nighttime felt like 2 minutes to me the next day. But the 2 hours of daylight, when I was doing homework, that felt like 2 hours to me, and so it was like I was losing 4 to 5 hours every single day. And that's how COVID mentally impacted me. While I was researching some of the sources, I actually went on my own and found a source about how a young teen responded to a news reporter about being out in public when he was supposed to be at his house. And this is what he said. He said, "I can get hit by a bus tomorrow, or I can get coronavirus today." And I sat there and thought to myself, what's he trying to say? He's trying to say that there's a million ways to die, and there's a chance that he can get coronavirus. But if he sat in his house, that means that he is just not living his life to the fullest in the chance that he does get coronavirus, which he can overcome. Basically what he's saying is he's losing time staying at home when he can be living his life, compared to as someone who is sheltering themselves in the odds that they can still get the virus, because there's no perfect clear-cut way to avoid it. Obviously, this seems a little irrational. If everybody thinks like this, then nobody would follow quarantine rules, everybody would be outside, and the virus would spread more rapidly than it already has. I just see where his point is coming from in terms of that. As being a young person myself, I wouldn't want to put any of my parents or elderlies at risk, but there's a fine line to the point in which we're taking risks as the public to live life, or we're going to hide from something that could very well last longer than the human race has even prepared for or ready for in a mental state. The coronavirus has changed my behaviors in many ways. One of the main things is that I always like to be ahead of the game and know what's happening, whether it's day-to-day things or homework. And recently, since everything has hit, especially when it comes to homework, I have been more so play it by ear. I see what happens, I see what time I have, and nothing's really planned out. So that's how I've been going about that. In terms of school and stuff like that, if I decide I'm going to go outside and do something, and I don't plan it out the day before like I used to. It's kind of just like, all right, let's leave the house now and do this because I'm sick and tired of doing homework. Not outgoing is one of the things that's happened to me. I've always been super outgoing, enthusiastic, but when there's nobody around, it's kind of hard to express those emotions. So since Corona has hit, I've not been that kind of person. Kind of like more down-to-earth, chill kind of person, even though that's not who I am. And when I do talk to people, the actual me starts to come out. The way that it did before the coronavirus hit. Of course, this is all due to a loss of schedule. Scheduling and knowing what I'm going to do is just part of who I am, and then everything follows suit with that. And I read a little statistic here that said 61% of Americans had honest conversation about their behaviors once coronavirus hit, and 77% felt better afterwards, which is kind of amazing to think about. The human connection and how people feel better talking about the things that has happened to them, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. When talking about a wave 2 coronavirus, first of all, I hope and pray that it never happens because it's been one of the worst things for everybody, including myself. But some of the things that would change or keep the same are, there's not many that would keep the same, but one thing is my organized workspace. When it comes to school or anything for that matter, I'm organized, and that hasn't changed through coronavirus. So I have all of my schoolwork laid out, I have my computer set up, they're always plugged in, I have everything I could need, I got scissors, tape, staples, all that kind of stuff, so I wouldn't change that for the world. Some things that would change, I would have to set myself to a strict schedule. The problem is here, I know what's coming for me, so if I don't set a strict schedule, I know that I'm going to go downhill just as fast, except for an entire year long instead of 2 to 3 months. And that's just not going to work for me. Being a senior will help, as a lot of my classes aren't that intensive because I took an easier year for my senior year, but regardless, I'm still going to need to take some classes that are going to be challenging for me. Exercise, I'm going to put myself to an hour of exercise a day. If it comes to that, if it comes to me running, which I hate doing, then I'll run. Otherwise, I'll set up some weight room stuff downstairs, do a lot of body weight exercises. Stuff like that has to be done so that I can sleep better at night and just feel like more accomplished about myself. My homework schedule is a big thing, so I think I'm going to split it up instead of doing the attack and where I just like try to get it all done. I feel like if I put like exercise halfway between my day with a good shower, that'll like regenerate me from the morning and I'll be outside more so I won't feel like I missed out there. But these are all things that I would change if coronavirus wave 2 came. And that is all I have about the coronavirus, and hopes and prayers that it never happens again.